It's fascinating, and I'm curious about where you are. If you want to share some information on where you are right now and what the next step might be for Generate.
Yeah. Well, I mean, excitingly, our first two molecules entered the clinic in 2023.
Mm-hmm.
That is a major milestone for any company, and we're extraordinarily proud that we're now starting to see the benefits in people. Those programs we think could, address major areas of unmet medical need. Behind it, though, we have roughly 20 programs. A number of those are in partnership. So we have 6 in partnership with Amgen. I mentioned the MD Anderson partnership, where we're now working on 3 different targets. We're working with Roswell Park Cancer Center on a number of other targets. And then we have an internal pipeline for Generate of around 8 to 10 programs that we're working on from a proprietary standpoint. And so we're in this transitional state of an organization where for the first few years we were really a pure technology company. Mm-hmm. We were developing a technology. Now we're kind of morphing into a technology company that discovers drugs. Mm-hmm. And that develops drugs. And so, you're seeing a bit of a transformation within the organization to bring in some of the skills and capabilities. And I think, from a business, building the organization perspective, that creates some interesting cultural dynamics, which we're working through. But clearly we need, the experience of seasoned drug hunters and drug developers with the pioneering spirit of the original technology developers. And so it's something that we spend a lot of time, thinking through. And then, from a technology perspective, we're scratching the surface of application. I always say to the team, the one thing I know definitively is I don't know the best use of the technology at this point. Mm-hmm. I know there are multiple multi-billion-dollar applications for the technology. But where this will have the greatest impact on humanity, we're still searching. And that leads to a bit of a dynamic where you're constantly balancing kind of exploration, right, and exploitation, right? So when you find those areas where we can make impact, how do we do more of those versus expanding the aperture? The technology is protein modality agnostic. So it works across antibodies, peptides, enzymes, cell, gene therapy, all that protein foundations, ADCs, bispecifics.
That's a good place to be.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
So you have a ton of real estate to cover. Which of those domains will we have greatest advantage over traditional approaches? We're still learning. My guess is it's going to be a more complex biology. If you think about where computers routinely outperform humans, it's in complex multi-parameter optimization. Mm-hmm. And the more complex the biological construct in many respects, I think the computer ultimately will show inherent advantage.
Sure.
So those sort of challenges as we go forward are super interesting. And you're trying to do that while you're trying to execute on these clinical programs, bring the next generation of programs to the fore, in developing a technology that I believe will ultimately change the way the whole industry creates large molecules. Yeah. And I don't say that lightly. We can debate how long that may be, but I think it's inevitable that over time these sort of approaches will provide a foundationally better way of coming up with the right answer than the traditional artisanal approach.
I know we're running short on time here, so I can ask you questions well into the evening, but I'm curious about one of the things you mentioned is sort of the cultural change of Generate into a drug development company, not away from a tech, but being built on a technology company. And I'm curious about how, if you're doing that, if you're leading a company that's doing that on an island, sort of unto itself, the challenge, it occurs to me, might be more daunting than it would be for flagship pioneering partner CEO.
Yeah.
How much support, like how advantageous is it for you? I'm not insinuating that perhaps you're sniping drug development talent from other flagship companies, but how advantageous is it for you to kind of be part of that ecosystem?
I mean, listen, it's a special ecosystem.
Mhm.
Right. What Flagship's been able to build is really extraordinary. And it's not for the faint of heart, right? Most innovation occurs in an incremental fashion. Most innovation from most organizations is around the edges. Flagship lives in the white spaces, and even the name of the organization is highly symbolic, right? Flagship pioneering.
Yeah.
A lot of the time we spend thinking about is, what does it mean to be a pioneer? What does it mean to push on into new areas, frontiers? How do you orient? And how do you make it inhabitable for other settlers?
Mm-hmm.
How do you keep pushing boundaries?
Right. The immigrant mentality. I hear it every time I talk with a flagship.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think one of the other things that we spend a lot of time thinking about are kind of dualities of leadership. Oftentimes, we think about, the world in black and white terms.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone says, well, no, let's live in the gray zone. Oftentimes what we believe is that, you need polar experience. And you need to be able to balance between the two poles, not in between.
Right.
And it's those sort of mindsets that I think become super valuable in these sort of, domains. You probably have heard Newbar talk about paranoid optimism,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's one of those dualities. Sometimes we need to be paranoid. Oftentimes we need to be optimistic.
Right.
And how do you, rather than kind of sitting there in between, how do we embrace both of the poles as we develop these sort of organizations? And so certainly it's really nice when you're doing things that people haven't done before. And you have guides that have been on similar journeys.
Right.
That can help you understand from their own experiences.
Yeah.
And, the team at Flagship, as I mentioned, Stefan, who is a member of the board, who's created obviously Moderna, they've been huge, I think, teachers for me, for the team at Generate, sharing their experiences in a very open, transparent way. And most importantly, not just the successes, but the failures. Because we oftentimes talk a lot about what went well, but you sometimes learn the most from the mistakes that organizations make on these sort of journeys.
Sure. We stated at the outset, it's a failure is inherent, and if you're not taking anything away from that, then
that's right.
It's on you.
You're losing.
Yeah.
And the team at Flagship, Newbar, Jeff, Avak, that were kind of the founding team of Generate, have been, extraordinary mentors, ambassadors, teachers, guides, as we've gone on this journey. And for someone that is coming from, a big company, doing this for the first time, being able to surround myself with those sort of people and a whole cohort of other CEO partners that are also doing this journey for the first time with an array of different backgrounds. That's an enormous asset because, as you know, I mean, you talk to a lot of folks in these sort of roles. These roles can be really lonely. And having that sort of ecosystem to pull upon is of huge, huge value. And it gives you a sense of calm in massive places of uncertainty. And, I'm enormously grateful for that.
Well, I'm enormously grateful for you taking time out of this busy week to spend with me on the business biotech. So I really appreciate it.